Hello and welcome to Dart Talk. Not Dart Talk. Let's start over. Welcome to show business. Hello and welcome to the Archers Annual. I got the 4th episode here. I'm with Derek Weaver, a good buddy of mine. So let's get started with Dart Talk. So Dart Talk consists of Derek's going to be throwing a dart at the dartboard there, and whatever number he hits corresponds with a question, some kind of hunting question. If he hits the black bullseye, he gets $50, and if he hits the yellow bullseye, he gets $20. So there's a little bit of incentive here again.
Yep.
So Derek, take your pick.
Alrighty.
Whichever one you think's going to win you the dough.
Go for the yellow one here.
Number 4. All right.
No money on that one.
All right, an archery question for you.
All right.
During archery season, do you like mornings or evenings better?
I prefer evenings, mostly because of my work schedule.
Okay.
I can dust out of work and hit an evening, and a lot of times I'm hunting over a food source, and that seems to be better in the evenings, because sometimes you blow them out in the morning because they're out there feeding. So usually I'll like to hunt the evenings over the mornings.
Yep, I know what you mean. You said after work there, it's like, usually for me it's like you just hunt when you can.
Yeah.
And a lot of times evenings works better than mornings, especially with work. So.
Yeah.
What do you do for a job? You're going to make people jealous. Okay, what do you do for a job?
I actually work at an archery shop. I guess you would say I'm a bow technician, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
But helping customers with archery questions, repairing bows, working on different things like that. So yeah, I enjoy it. It does get in the way of hunting though, because when I'm busy at work, that's when I want to be out there hunting, because everyone else is hunting too. So yeah,
I know how it is. I worked with Derek for almost a year.
Almost a year.
Yep, when I was in high school, I worked with him. You were my manager, dude. So.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And I didn't fire you. That's not.
No, it wasn't because of that. No. Yeah. So, okay, let's get into what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about European mounts specifically, taxidermy European mounts. Derek is a amateur taxidermist, I guess.
Absolutely.
Specifically Euro mounts.
Yeah, that's all I do at this point.
Right. So as we get into this, first explain the different ways that you can do a European mount on anything really. So Derek's pretty good at it. He did this. This is my little porcupine skull I shot here in it was middle of August. Oh, not August, October.
With your compound.
With my compound, but yeah.
Which, that's pretty hard.
Yeah, it was. I felt pretty good about myself.
Yep.
And you got a doe head there for me right now.
Yep.
So
I'll be getting that one done here soon.
Yeah, but no antlers for me.
Not this year.
Yeah.
Next year though, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
But yeah, so the different ways of mounting a deer skull, there's really 3 different ways, but the 2 that would be the most popular would be boiling or beetles. And the beetles, definitely a little bit more higher maintenance, but less work goes into it. So you can do probably a little bit faster with the boiling, but when it comes to the beetles, you get more detail. You get it cleaner, less chance of damaging the skull, but it is a kind of a high maintenance thing where you have to feed the beetles all year long, and sometimes they'll stop eating and stuff like that. So there's those types of things you got to watch out for.
Yeah, I had, this one here I had done with beetles before you were doing your Euros. So the guy that did that one, he had 2 freezers that he had beetles in over hunting season. He had two different freezers with beetles in.
Wow.
And then over the summertime, he'd condense them down to 1. And he said over the summer it's a problem because you got to try and keep them alive. So he'd have like these cow skulls and stuff that he'd set in there just to keep them alive over the summertime, and it had to be like 80, 80, 90 degrees all the time in there. So it's
It
like,
had to be pretty precise, is what I'm
yeah,
finding. I never tried it, but it seems like it's pretty technical. You
yeah,
lose all your beetles real quick,
yeah,
and there's different diseases that they can get too, which will wipe them out.
right. So
So
it is a cool idea, and it's the larva that eats the meat actually. So it's not
okay,
like that's how I understand it anyways.
okay,
It's not the beetle that actually eats it. Like it's the beetle lays its eggs, and then the
and
larva
then the
as it
larva.
grows is
Okay,
what's eating it. That's my
yeah,
understanding.
yeah, which that sounds right. I never done it,
So
but
that's the one method. The other method is boiling, you said, which
yeah,
is the one that you're.
that's the one that
Um,
I usually do. It's just I started doing it just for fun. I didn't feel like taking my skulls to a taxidermy guy to do it, and I kind of YouTubed it and then just started learning technique and different ways of doing it and talking to buddies that tried it, and yeah, so that's what I do. I'm not professional at it, but
mhm.
I do enjoy doing it to some extent because
Yeah.
it is some work.
About how many skulls have you done by now?
Well, this year I did like 11 so far,
Okay.
but in the past, I don't know, maybe 20,
Okay.
30, 25, maybe.
Yeah.
Not
So this year you've done the most you've
I've
ever
done the
done.
most I've ever done.
Yep.
Yeah. And I found a lot easier way of doing it. And
Good.
that was using a pressure washer that I didn't use before. The pressure washer speeds the process up quite a bit.
Okay. Yeah.
Instead of just cutting it all off with a knife
Mhm.
and pulling it off with pliers and stuff like that, the pressure washer does do it a lot quicker. You just have to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah. So from your opinion, what are the pros like for boiling, as compared to beetles? Like what things do you see as advantages?
So an advantage with the boiling, I would say, is the timeline, and also you don't have to degrease it. So like when you do beetles, they just clean off all the meat and muscle and that stuff. But then you gotta still degrease it, and that's another thing that takes time. But
Hmm.
with the boiling, you boil it, soften up the meat, pressure wash it, clean it all up, and then throw it in the bleach, and that basically boils the oils and stuff out of it
Hmm.
and whitens it too. So you don't have to do any of that extra after you're done. Like
Right.
so the boiling's a quicker process, but the beetles are a lot more detailed.
Okay.
You can keep more of that nasal bone up in your up
Mm.
in the nasal.
Let's see if there's a difference on mine.
Yeah, you can see
Yeah.
it. This one's completely empty up in here. That one actually has those.
This little.
Yeah, which some
Little
people really
bones.
like that. I personally don't really care.
Yeah.
I don't really look up those a whole lot. Like,
You don't look up the deer nose a lot?
yeah, no, I
That's
don't.
probably a good thing.
I mean, when they're hanging on the wall, you don't really see it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just always rip those out because you can
Mhm.
get it a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
But
I
with
can't
the
say I've
beetle,
ever even noticed it.
yeah, with the beetles, you can keep that in there,
Gotcha.
and more of this stuff, which is real brittle and stuff here,
Mhm.
when you're pressure washing and boiling, that'll usually leave, and you can
Yeah.
see on that one that
It's all there.
it's all there, which makes a cleaner look, a nicer mount. But yeah, I guess depends what you want. If you want it done quick and decent, or if you want it done a little bit slower and
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It all depends on where you're at.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of depends. Like it depends on what you're. If it's one of these, I mean, for Pennsylvania, this is a decent buck. It's a nice buck. It's not the biggest buck you'll find by any means, but
Yeah.
it's a decent buck, and that's kind of I gauge. I think for me in my lifetime, I'm gonna have one or two shoulder mounts that
Yep.
are hopefully gonna be absolute monsters.
Yep.
But
The-
most of them, I think for me, are gonna be euros because it's a whole lot cheaper than a shoulder mount.
Yeah. And
Got
they
that
look
right.
nice. Like you can shoot a good sized buck and do a European mount and not be disappointed in
Yeah.
it. Now if you just cut the skull out, or the horns out of the skull, it just I don't
Mhm.
know, kind of takes something away from it a little bit on a nice sized buck.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's
Yeah.
a cool mount for not having to spend tons of money.
Exactly. Yep. Right.
Um,
Why don't you step me through the process of boiling a deer head, like each step, kind of what you do.
okay.
So as sorry, I'm gonna stop you. As we go through here, I'm gonna throw Derek got me some footage of him doing one, so I'll throw that up on the bottom of the screen as we go through these so you can kind of see what he's talking about. Go ahead.
So the first thing I'll do is always, I try and do it soon after the kill, so not like oils and stuff seeps into the skull and it discolors it more, is cut all the fur off, all the skin off, lay that all out, and then remove the bottom jaw and cut off all the meat and as much as I can, get the eyes out, all that. And then I'll get the water to just like a slow boil, nothing too crazy. And I'll put the skull in and then put some like Dawn dish soap in, which that helps like kind of degrease it, loosen up the meat and stuff. If I understand it right, it helps. It helps break it down. And then I don't really have a timeline, but I'll do it, pull it out a couple times, check it. You kind of have to babysit them. You can't really go do something else, or you end up hurting the skull, because if you boil it too long, they will come brittle and break, especially if it's like a 1.5-year-old deer. Those skulls are a lot more fragile versus like a 3.5-year-old deer. You can tell a difference.
Yeah, I know that one there was boiled. I did that one before you were doing it.
Yeah.
Well, right when you were getting started, you kind of helped me with that one a little bit.
Yeah.
But the teeth on that one are like loose. Like if you feel them teeth, they should, I believe they're loose.
Yep.
Yeah, they're all loose. I don't know.
Those aren't.
Those aren't. So, but I know I overcooked that thing like crazy.
Yeah, and if it was a young deer, these front bones right here would not be there. And then this bone up top here would have started trying to come off. And you might have lost other things too. So that's something you got to be careful. But I'll do that, get it all softened up, and then get the pressure washer going and just start blowing the stuff off. Just being careful for this area right in here, and not too much out here on the front, just to not blow that stuff off. And then I'll just do that process 2 or 3 times, however much it takes, but in between there I'll be cutting stuff out with the pliers, pulling stuff out, cutting stuff out, getting the ear butts out and stuff like that. And then once I have it to where I'm very satisfied with it, as clean as I can get it without wasting too much time, I'll get another pot and put 35% peroxide is what I put in there with water. And I don't really have a measurement. You just kind of do however much makes
just
sense.
Dump, right?
Yep. You just if you probably can go too much, that it'll actually eat away at the skull. So you don't want to go too much, but I'll usually put some in, and then if I feel like it's not doing the job, it'll kind of like bubble and sizzle up. But before I put the skull in there, I always tape them up, the antlers, to keep them from getting
around the base. It's like right here.
I'll usually try and do saran wrap, and then that just kind of helps, and then I'll duct tape it, and that just kind of helps keep the duct tape from leaving like a residue, and just help keep that bleach from discoloring them, because it's a pain trying to patch that up. You can do it. I've used like a wood stain. You get a wood stain that's a pretty similar color to your antlers, and you just take a Q-tip and just dab that in, and no one will ever know it. But it can get pretty bad if they're not taped up, because the bleach, you got to get it over the top of the skull, and sometimes it'll get away from you and it'll be right up on top of there. So make sure you do tape them up, keep it from discolorating the skull or the antlers, because it does take something away from it when it's all white. And like if the buck was rubbing before you shot it, if you tape that up, it also keeps that like tree bark and stuff in there, which is pretty cool, because that'll wash right out. And when you're pressure washing, try not to spray the horns too much. You'll clean that stuff right out.
Clean right out. Okay.
So
before you were having, well, I say before, I made you a little thing that you didn't try yet. Hopefully. Derek was telling me this problem. I think I have some video of it where you're pressure washing and you have the deer between your feet and you're like pressure washing. I was like, there's got to be a better way for this guy. So I drew something up, and we'll see if it works or not. It's supposed to mount on a post, and then he can pressure wash the bottom side of the deer off.
It'll help get the angle a lot better too, so that I can move around the skull instead of standing over top of it and then having to rotate the skull. And depending if I didn't have it pinstripe between my feet, it would shoot off to the side, and I don't want too much of that, or you can damage them real quick.
Right.
So, and the other thing is you get sprayed with brains like crazy when you're spraying the brains out and you're standing right over top of it. Stuff's flying everywhere. So if you could back up a little bit and spray it in front of you, that would be a lot. So I'm anxious to try it. Appreciate you making that for me.
Yeah, you have to let me know if you need a new tweak or something.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to give it a try. I have one more to do yet, so we'll see what it does.
Okay, good.
So I forget where I was, but with the bleach, I do it for about 5 or 10 minutes in the bleach, depending how quick it's breaking down. And if I'm not satisfied with it, I'll do it a little bit longer and then pull it out. And I always pressure wash it after that, clean all that peroxide off, get rid of all that. And after that peroxide is in there, it breaks everything else down and loosens it up. So if you hit that with the pressure washer, especially on the back of the skull where the meat's real tough to get off, it'll break that stuff out pretty quick.
Okay.
But you've got to be careful with the skull that you're not going too close to it with a high-powered pressure washer. After it's in that peroxide, it's brittle, more brittle than it was before. So you just have to be a little bit careful. But
breaks down that cartilage in between the bones and the skull.
Yeah, because that'll yellow up pretty quick if that's not taken out.
Right.
But some of it is hard to get out, but do the best you can.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's kind of your process,
that's kind
right?
of how I do it, and I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but that's kind of what I figured works the best.
So can you do a skull in one night, or does this take multiple nights, or
So one evening I could probably do 2 that are de-skinned and the bottom jaw's off, and they're ready for the boil. Start pressure washing, and then get it ready for the bleach. I could probably do 2 if I worked pretty hard at it, because I'll put one in the boil, get it ready to pressure wash, then I'll be pressure washing while this one's boiling, and I'll kind of bounce it back and forth till I get them done, and then put them in the bleach, and then babysit it while it's in the bleach to make sure it's not boiling too much, or you just want it to a nice kind of a simmer, not a crazy boil. So yeah, probably could do 2 in a night, which would probably take a good 3 hours or more. 3 hours. Yeah.
And that's after they're de-skinned already.
Yeah, that's after they're de-skinned. So yeah, it is a timely process.
Right.
It takes some time, but
takes some time to do that. Yeah, I've skinned out a couple of them that I gave to you, and it does take a while just to work around everything and try and get as much meat off as you can.
Yeah, cutting the eyes out and stuff like that. It's just
the eyes are nasty. It's just weird having an eye looking back at you when you're doing that.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of weird, but you kind of feel bad, but you got to get them out. So.
Yeah. Why don't we move on to our Bible verse for today? The Bible verse is Proverbs 28:13. Whoever conceals their sins does not prosper, but the one who confesses and renounces them finds mercy. That verse stuck out to me the other day when I was reading that and getting this ready. It kind of reminded me, for me, I was kind of, when I was about 15 to 18, I struggled with like sexual morality. So I struggled with that, and then I noticed, well, I didn't notice, I knew I had a problem and had to fix it, do something with it. And I really started finding healing when our youth pastor, Nelson, when he brought us, a bunch of us together, and we just started talking about it. Kind of get it out in the open, and it's like, yeah, I'm not the only one that deals with this. And then just through a process of healing, bringing that to Jesus, saying, Jesus, I need help with this, and something that I can't do on my own. It brought healing, and it's something that I can find victory in today. And I love sharing it with other people, because that's great. What Christianity is all about, having Jesus come in and heal us from the things that sin does to us. So.
Well, thanks for sharing. And that's what Satan wants. He wants you to hide it. He wants you to bottle it up. And as soon as you bring it out, you realize that you're not the only one that struggles with it. And that Satan wants you to think that you're the only one. And
that's a powerful tool that he uses, because when you think you're alone, you think you're a loner.
You're not going to share it, because everyone else is going to think that you're weird because you struggle with that.
Right.
But it's not.
No.
It's everyone struggles.
Everyone struggles with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of what I had for that Bible verse. So Derek, thank you for coming on, talking about Euro mounts.
Absolutely.
If you need a Euro mount, talk to Derek.
Yep.
He'll do his best, right?
Yep. I'm not professional, but I do have fun doing it, and yeah, I like to keep trying to get better and more efficient at it.
That's right. And soon you'll be doing ducks and geese. And...
I would love to. It's too expensive to go get those mounts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Derek, and we'll catch you later.